Thank you for joining me today. I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked. You know, you can't have a successful career without knowing how to deal with the unexpected, and Unlocked is here to help you do that. If you're a person who sets goals that challenge you to fully reach your potential, this show is for you. This is a show all about opening possibilities so that when you're hit with the unexpected, you have options from which to choose. You can learn more about the show on my website, madelineblair.com/unlockedtv, and it includes all of the replays. And if you have topic ideas or questions, just email me at madeline@madelineblair.com. And if you're curious about the background of the show, check out my book, Unlocked. There's a image of it behind me. Discover how to embrace the unexpected, and it's available on Kindle, audio, and paperback. If you would like to explore what it means to build and nurture your resilience with me as your mentor, reach out directly to me to schedule a conversation and write to madeline@madelineblair.com. Be sure to sign up, by the way, for my mailing list. I'll keep you informed about my new group mentoring program, Unlocking Together, coming in April. Our topic today is success and being curious about yourself. The actress Tina Lifford said, "When you know yourself, you are empowered. When you accept yourself, you are invincible." Today, we're exploring curiosity in relation to ourselves and how it relates to our success. We all learn about ourselves from what others tell us. Like from the very beginning, we hear others say things like, "Vikas is such a busy child. How do you keep up with him?" Or, "Lisa is always taking things apart. I'm sure she's going to be an engineer." Later in life, others continue their observations. "Vikas, you're so busy all the time. How do you balance your work with your family?" "Lisa, you ask so many questions in our meetings. Do you think your questions are more important than other things?" You know, these are small observations that reflect judgment and can actually hold us back. It's when we begin asking ourselves questions that the fun begins. Why are you busy? Is it because you always were wanting to learn? Or is it that busyness seems to be the only thing that your boss recognizes as productivity? Boy, I hate that one. Now, this is an important question to answer for yourself. Asking questions in meetings, maybe because you love understanding the background of a situation. Or is it that you want the other members of the team to reflect more carefully as they make decisions? Knowing who you are empowers you. As Lifford suggests, let's work on becoming invincible by knowing ourselves so well that we can accept all of ourselves. Today, we're going to dive more deeply into this. Now, as usual, I had a conversation with Dr. Ed Hoffman, former CKO of NASA. We wandered around the topic of curiosity, as we have done in other shows, and we came to a question that we both found most useful. That question was, how did knowing who you are affect how you led and managed others? Now, that's a question, and we'll visit that answer after we have talked with our guest, Kamin Samuel. Kamin, welcome to Unlocked.
Well, thank you so much, Madeline, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, that makes two of us, let me tell you. All right, let me tell our audience about you. Dr. Kamin Samuel is an international rapid business transformation coach and wealth mindset coach who is passionate about assisting individuals to identifying and clearing their inner blocks to achieving greater success in all areas of their lives. Kamin has the distinction of being the U.S. Navy's first female African-American helicopter pilot. I am so impressed with that, Kamin. She also previously had illustrious corporate career prior to becoming a coach, growing to vice president of global website operations at a billion-dollar company. She holds a PhD in positive neuropsychology, and she serves on the board of EduCare Foundation, one of the largest after-school program providers in the Los Angeles Unified School District. And I want to hear about that, Kamin, because there's a big strike coming on.
There's a strike, yes.
Just a little more. I can't resist. I got to tell them about you, Kamin. She's the author of numerous books, including Increase Your Abundance Starting Today and Wealth Creation for Coaches. And she's also profoundly and rapidly transforming high-performing consultants, coaches, and executives. How does she do this? She begins by asking you to be curious about your ors. Now, I'm really curious about that, and I hope you are too. So again, Kamin, welcome to Unlocked.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Truly an honor to be here.
Great. Well, your career swings from highly technical to highly human. You've got to tell us a little bit about that journey and how you discovered your real purpose.
Oh, such a great question because, coming out of college, I did go into the military and flew the CH-46 helicopters, the big one with the rotors on top. And I really enjoyed it. But I went into the military primarily because I did not want, 2 weeks of vacation a year. I wanted to see the world. And so I was able to do that and, be a flight instructor. And then I wanted to go into business for myself, which that didn't work out so well. I would do that differently if I were going to do that again. And I did get the opportunity to, and failed miserably at business. But that's really when I had to learn, like, who am I? What is it that lights me up? What brings me joy? What do I love to learn about? And that took me into technology and being a web developer and growing my web into web operations. But all throughout, I was always about helping to mentor people and help them grow and help them learn. And so it was kind of a natural progression. Even from very young elementary school, I was always trying to help solve people's problems.
Gee, I used to solve problems, but they were always mine.
I was much better at solving other people's problems.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, you have said the opportunities and choices we have right now is what matters. And then you said the shorter our memory, the less we remember our judgments and what people have said that we could or couldn't do. Oh, I wonder if you want to expand a little bit on that. I just love this.
Well, it came from a quote from the quarterback, Troy Aikman, who said, what was the secret to his success? He said a short memory. Like the shorter we can be about our memory, the more we can realize that in the present moment, we can change anything, that we can create again, we can shift into a new frame of mind, a new mindset about anything. We can create a new future from the present. And in order to do that, we have to let go of what just happened. We can watch, athletes or any kind of top professional, and you can actually see almost if they're in their head, they can't actually be in the moment. And that's the same for everyday people too. And we want our to create from a fresh place anew every day.
I would never have guessed that came out of sports.
Yes.
But how true it is. I mean, and they have to work very fast. I mean, this is not something where you can sit and ponder anything.
You can't hold on to a point. You can't hold on to a fumble. You can't hold on. Even musicians, if they play a bad note, they can't hold on to that. They can't be in their head about,
They can't replay it.
They can't replay it. You have to move on. And so it's this ability that we have to train our mind in any given moment to be so present, Sometimes I do that just by watching people's lips. Like if something has happened and I'm in my head, I have to just, like when they're talking, I'll just focus in to bring myself back to my breath and bring myself into the moment.
Oh, I like that strategy of simply watching something about them. And of course, if they're talking, then it's great to watch their lips because it
Right?
helps you hear as well.
Yes.
Ah, yeah. That's great. Well, I'm going to give you another quote. Gary Klein, in his book, Sources of Power, How People Make Decisions, says that sometimes we make decisions based on previous experience,
Mhm.
and sometimes that's valuable, and sometimes it's the worst thing we can do. He says it a little more elegantly than that. And especially when the context of the decision is different at the moment. I wonder if you would talk about this in relation to examining our opportunities. I think you've begun talking about it, but I'll just expand on.
And I love this quote because we do make decisions in the present many times from the past and we don't realize it. And you were talking in the intro about, what we heard as children. What have we heard that was disparaging or judgmental
Mhm.
about, our curiosity or our not curiosity, right? Not having enough curiosity
Yeah.
or, our abilities, we want to try out for something, music or a play or sports, and we hear something that says, "Oh, you're not good enough." Now, doesn't matter what words were said at that time, it's how we felt. It was like the
Mm.
impact of them on us. And then here we are, we're growing a corporate career, growing a business, and then suddenly we're faced with an opportunity and we don't go for it.
Mm.
We choose to we don't even know that we're hiding in some way.
Ah.
And so it's this opportunity for us to realize that we have a lot of beliefs that aren't ours inside of us. And
Mm.
that those beliefs are what are making our decisions many times. And
Wow.
sometimes I'll slow my clients down and say, whose voice is that? Especially if it's a
Mhm.
negative voice. Whose
Yeah.
voice is that? Close your eyes and just kind of connect in. And this isn't about blame. If it was a parent, a teacher, it's not about blame.
Yeah.
I want them and everyone to awaken to whose voice is guiding them so that they can say, wait, I'm now an executive, I'm now a frontline manager, whatever. I don't have to make decisions from my past. Does that make sense, Madeline?
It really does. And I love the idea of you asking them to imagine in their minds
Yeah.
uh, this hearing that sound. And I also really appreciate this is not a question of blame. It's
No.
just a question of understanding where it came from. Yeah.
And even in our title, right, it's being curious about you.
Yeah.
We want to know what fuels us, what lights us up, what takes us out.
Mm.
What if something went wrong, we don't want to come from a place of judgment. We just simply want to know what did I hear? What did I react to?
Mhm.
Many times, you know, bad behavior is a younger version of us acting out of something. And I like to be like, let's just stop and why did I react? What happened?
Mhm.
Because then we can make changes in the present for the future.
Yeah. I wonder if you could look in your own life and
Mhm.
tell us a time in your life when you realized that every day was an opportunity to choose new.
There's a It's a great question. When I think about my corporate career, and I loved being in corporate, and I had some amazing jobs, but one of the jobs I had was web operations, and this is when I was a manager, and I was fighting fires every day, and I just
Oh, yeah.
loved it. And one of the directors came to me and said, we really would like you to take a new job. We want you to be online merchandising. I'm like, no, I am a web operations. This is what I do. This is who I am. I'm the best at it in the world. So then that boss's boss came to me and said, hey, we'd really like you to take web merchandising. I'm like, no, I am the best at this. This is who I am. It is everything, and this is all I want to do. When the senior vice president came to me, I was like, hmm.
I think they're serious. Huh?
Is there a music playing that I can't hear that's going to stop and there's no chair? And I literally had to like pause and be like, well, okay, this is who I've been. I don't know anything about this other job. I'm like, okay, I'll take it, because I figured the other job must be going away if three people. I always would think of the send a rowboat, a boat, and a
Yes,
helicopter.
yes, yes.
I'm like, okay, let me pay attention here. Let me be curious about why this is happening.
Yeah.
And I took that job. It was my favorite job. And primarily because when I was very young, I was about 8 years old. I lived in the DC area. And so everything was, about the Redskins at the time, the Washington Nationals now, I think.
Mhm.
And so I would be laying on the floor, but it was Sunday. And do you remember when the sales circulars were those big,
Yeah,
fat sales circulars?
yeah.
At 8, I was gutting the paper, reading the sales circulars. I don't know what I was thinking I was going to buy. I was studying them. So on day 1 of this new job, I was like, wait, this is what I get to do. And so it's that sometimes for me, it's the curiosity. Am I curious about why things are starting to show up almost like they're just showing up almost like magic? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll take it. And then it matches something that I didn't even know was possible for myself.
Yeah. Oh, that's a marvelous story. So did they outsource networking operations?
They did do a reorg, and so it did not look like what I had done before, but it allowed me, and it was where I just kept growing my career and moved to
Yeah,
another company and
fantastic.
grew it again. And so we never know, but if we're curious about what the environment, curious, I'm all about energy, right? And even coming
Yeah,
from a neuroscience perspective, it's all energy. So if we're
yeah,
paying attention to what's happening around us, oh, wait, I need to pivot. That's just turning to something new.
that's right.
I don't know what's over here. And it's unfamiliar. Like our brain loves what's familiar,
Yeah,
and it does not like unfamiliar.
I
So the
know.
ability for us to come back in any moment and say, okay, that's unfamiliar. How do I make it familiar? How do I try this? How do I have a testing mentality? Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh yes. Oh yes. It reminds me of a of of something that often say. I should say, not usually. I often say at the end of my talks, when I'm talking about resilience, and that these are usually places of discomfort,
Yes.
and you want to get out of them. And I always say, never, never confuse comfort with safety.
It's a great way to put it. Yes. Because we try to run from it, right? And we
Mm,
try to hide. And the truth is many people are like, I'm scared, or, this is happening to me. And they look at it almost as a catastrophe. And I'm like, oh, but there's gold in there.
yeah,
Like, see, how is this working out for you? See what's on offer for you. And how do you realize it's just the mind trying to protect you?
protect you.
That's
That's right.
all.
It does that so well.
It is really good at trying to
Yeah,
protect us by keeping us small, by telling us that we have imposter syndrome, all of that, all of those things to keep us safe. When the fact is we are more powerful than we even know.
that's right. Now, my intro of you, I mentioned the fact that you ask people this or question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, talk a little bit about looking at your ors. What does it mean?
Yes, it means many people have set up their lives in paradigms like I can have love or money. I can have a baby or a career. I can have happiness or money or success. And the truth is, I like to put an and in everything. It is all about the and for me. It's
Ah,
like, how do you have happiness and money? because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like where did that ore come from?
Mm.
Well, it comes from these stories when I watch these people who are saying like, you know, only, we had happiness growing up, not money, because the rich people, they were unhappy. And I say, well, where did you learn that the rich people were unhappy? Well, we would be driving, somewhere, and they're like, those people aren't happy like we're happy.
Mm.
And so the ability for us to see, well, why is it an or? Why is it love or money? Why is it happiness or money? Why is it baby or success? Why is it anything? What is it that set up that paradigm, and how can we look at it with fresh eyes today,
Mm.
given who you are, given who you've grown into? There's a phrase I coined that I'll share here, because there are people who have had a lot of failure in their life. And I like to look at it as failure currency. It is a way to realize that your failure matters. Like you can help people if you've been through something, because you can help them like either recover faster or not go where you went. And so there's a level of currency to
Mm.
that, a level of payment for that, that says like you've been battle tested. And
Mm.
so this ability to say, what's an or? Well, you've already lived the or. Let's choose an and. Like what if I could be happy and have money? What if I could have love and money? What if I could have success and happiness or children and live wherever I choose to live?
Mm.
It's just our creativity that needs to be activated, and our curiosity about how could I do that?
Yeah. And the really cool thing is that if you work on curiosity, you get creativity. If you work on creativity, you're going to get curiosity. They go together. You cannot separate them, I think.
And it's interesting because I love that you brought that up, because I've always said, I unlearned curiosity as
Oh,
an
yeah.
adult because of my military background. I didn't want to know anything that anybody could catch me for. Like I didn't want to be captured, like leave me alone, right? So when going into coaching, I had to relearn to be curious about others.
Yeah.
I'm curious about myself. How do I learn to get into someone's world and really see where are the ors, where are the paradigms that we can just shift for them?
Speaking of shifting, we talked about this earlier, that we might be able actually to demonstrate something for the audience, because I think sometimes you just have to see it to understand. And as my audience knows, I'm willing to try almost anything. So I'll just toss the ball to you, and you decide, Kamin, if
Okay.
you would like to do that.
I'm absolutely game. Let's play. What would
All
you
right.
like to play with?
Well, you have to tell me.
Okay. So one of the things I love is kind of flipping beliefs. Like
Mm.
I was just talking about ors, or there's many people come to me and they have a long list of I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too this, that holds them back from really moving into like their next level. And I'm generally talking about a stair step, or trying not to get their leaps to be too big in their world. So when we're thinking about what is that next level for you, and are there any holdbacks, anything that come up for you that has you, it can look like worry, fear, just not feeling comfortable about that next step in your life.
Okay, I'll take this on, because for most of my early professional life, I felt I had to do things perfectly. I mean, I was often the only woman in the room, and we're talking about the rooms with the big tables.
Yes. I've been there. Yes.
You've been there. And so I was very afraid of making mistakes. So I would prepare myself like crazy, so that when I walked in, I knew what I was going to say. I knew I hoped I knew every answer to any question, so that I would appear perfect. Now, it took me a while, but then I realized 100%, 110%, that's not sustainable.
Right.
And I discovered that even at 80%, I was still better than most people. So I went down to 80%, and it was much easier to live that way. But more recently, I mentioned in the opening that I'm about to offer a new program on group mentoring. And I've been working on this for a long time, both for writing my book, then writing the materials, and going through all the technical issues. And I'm discovering that it's very easy for me to just have an excuse to put it off a little bit more. And as you're talking, I'm realizing people really have, they think that I do a lot of stuff. Well, I do a lot of stuff.
You do.
and so I have this thing in my head that I have to do everything really well, or they won't believe that I've done all these things. So there's one. So if you can help me shift that would be wonderful, because I have to announce this thing fearlessly. And right now I don't feel that.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Is your 80% someone else's 110%?
Oh, undoubtedly.
So let's just be clear that even at 80%, you're at 110, because you're probably.
I never thought of it that way.
So I do want you to see that even at 80, if you stayed at 80, if you can, you're already going. Your heart is about over giving, giving out of the abundance of your heart, right? Giving out of the abundance of your experience and your knowledge.
Yes.
So one aspect of this, Madeline, is to take it and look at that and say, oh, like, is it creeping up because I think that I'm not enough, that I don't know enough, I don't have experience enough, whatever. And that ability, just in that moment, to realize, wait, if I said to you, Madeline, this program starts tomorrow, however many people you want in that program would be in your Zoom room, it's ready to, they're ready to go, and you just showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Would they see how magnificent you are in just holding in? All you'd have to do is show up. It's all inside of you, resident inside of you. And all you're doing is sharing from the wealth of experience from the book, which is you, is your gift to the world of what you do. And the ability to sit in that, how are you hearing that now from that perspective?
I think I want you to write my promo copy. Now it feels, I don't want to be facetious about this. I sincerely am sitting here thinking, this is amazing. She's right. Because I am so well prepared for this. That I know that I will give enormous value to the people who are in the room. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm ready.
So you're ready to launch. And it brought tears to my eyes, because it really is this ability for you to own. Like, I've watched, your podcasts and how you are in the world. And I know that anyone who's going to show up in that program is going to be touched and have the ability to transform and unlock their potential in new and expansive ways.
Wow. Okay, I'm getting tingles now. All right. Well, I like my next question, and I'm going to ask myself it after the show.
Okay.
What are you learning from your work?
Mm. I think so. Love of learning is high for me.
Mm.
So I have to manage myself on learning so I can go down a
Why?
rabbit hole.
Why?
Is I have to learn how to taper it so that I don't give it to my clients in a fire hose.
Good.
I think one of the things that I'm learning more and more, especially from the neuroscience perspective and the positive psychology world, is our infinite potential, our infinite possibility. And so, recently I was learning about how we are born with infinite value, safety, and power. And at some point after birth, those three go somewhere south of 50% in us. If 100% is infinite, we don't realize it that our family of origin, no blame, culture, school, withdraw from our value, power, and safety. And our job is to fill that up and to connect in and to realize our superpowers, to realize. And when I talk about superpowers, those are some of the strengths from the positive psychology world. There's VIA character.org, where you can take a free test and you can learn your top strengths, your signature strengths and 24 strengths, and this ability for us to realize like our who we are and how uniquely we're designed is enough, and that how we come from those strengths. So some of my top strengths are gratitude, love of learning, hope. I'm an eternal optimist. Um, and honesty and love and spirituality, and the ability for me to use those in any given moment and shift, tying into Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow. Like we can be in flow, we can shift in any given moment. You talked about earlier about shifting to being in a new situation. When we know our strengths and our um, superpowers and really calling them that and owning that, we can fill our value, our safety, and our power, because the outer proceeds from the inner.
Mm.
Whatever we want to create, what we're focused on, comes from what we believe about ourselves, our possibility, and that is being backed up with neuroscience more and more.
You know, I love the fact that you are translating the phrase superpower into something that is real.
Yeah.
Because I think we have decided that superpower is when zap from your fingers some.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yes.
this is how much of our culture thinks about superpower.
Mhm.
And what I'm hearing from you is, no, superpower is something that really we do have. It may not come out of our fingertips as lightning,
No.
but in fact, it can be that impactful if we
Mhm.
choose to use it.
Yes.
Now,
Absolutely.
I want to go back to. I copied down the URL that you mentioned,
Yes.
VIA something.org.
Yeah. VIAcharacter.org.
Character. CHARACTER.
Yes. .org. Hmm.
Okay. VIA. All right. Good. Just want to make sure our listeners
Yes,
got
and
that right.
it's a wonderful, and they've used it in the military. And I did a transition program for military in Italy, transitioning out, and many of them, you would think, bravery was at their top, and bravery wasn't at their top. You know what was the number one character strength for many of them?
What?
Kindness.
Oh my goodness.
Kindness. And my husband, he's not into war. And when we met and he found out I was military, I said, "Do you think that I love war, And he's like, well, doesn't everybody in the military? I'm like, no, I love peace. I was just willing to serve and protect my country for it.
Yeah.
And so it's a misunderstanding that many people have around who our military are. They're just willing to serve this great nation for the peace that we get to experience.
Hmm. That's beautiful. I want to shift us just a little bit. We are facing many issues today, culturally, economically, etc. In the work that you're doing, what are the kinds of issues you see people dealing with, trying to grapple with? I won't even say solve, just grapple.
I think, again, going back to being curious about yourself first, right? It's yes, there are a lot of things happening around us, right? There's all sorts of things. Today we just had this massive storm come through and now the sun is out. But there's another storm right behind it. So, people are dealing with that. They're with climate challenges. There are so many things, and the thing that work with most people on is, what do they believe about money? What do they believe about wealth? What do they believe about their opportunities? Because we can look at the economy and say, this is, there's a recession coming. There are no jobs. There's banks failing and all sorts of things happening. And the truth, going back to, earlier, is like everything happens in the present moment. What can you create now? What would you like to create? And so many times, people will say, they have a challenge in their life. Well, I'm always looking for the blessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is this a blessing? Well, Kamin, that's not a blessing. And I'm like, I understand that you're not seeing the blessing right now, but at least you're awake to something new in this moment than you've ever been awake to before, even if it's a challenge, even if it's the hardest thing. And when the pandemic happened, I stopped all of my clients, and our next session, when the world stopped, I asked them 4 questions. How is this a blessing? Not what's happening, the loss of life, none of that. But how is it a blessing? How is it an answer to an unspoken or unconscious prayer or thought? What is it here that you're trying to learn? And what would you like to create?
Wow.
And so, the ability for me to stop all clients and really work with them on that. I had professors who had never done anything online. We stopped. I gave them a tour of Zoom. They were up before the school was in session. They were ready to go. And so people will say to me, well, that second one is the toughest one for people, is how is this an answer to an unspoken or unconscious prayer? Well, I had a lot of people say, I didn't want to lose my job. And I'm like, didn't you say recently you hated going to work? Didn't you say you wanted to work from home?
Yeah.
And it's not, again, we didn't want the carnage. We didn't want any of that, the catastrophe of that. But we get to step in any given moment, Madeline, to really own our lives and own that we are creators, and that what we think about and what we rehearse every day in our thoughts are things. And so they manifest. And so it's this ability for me to work with clients on what is it you really want to create. And they're like, well, if I just had more money. And I'm like, there are a lot of people who have money who don't have joy. They don't have the relationships that they want. So that goes to, how do I have both? How do I have the and here?
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, I'm all about stair stepping. Many people want, especially people want to go from like $30,000 a year to $100,000 a
I
year. And
know.
I'm like,
Life doesn't work that way. Very
even if
rare.
even if it did,
Mhm.
they'd sabotage it
Yeah.
unknowingly.
Yeah.
And so they're like, no, I wouldn't. I'm like, yes, you would. Like, I've seen
Well,
it.
it reminds me of the people who win the lottery
Yes, it
and
is
they
them.
don't know how to manage it because it's new to them.
It's new to them. It's a different behavior. And so what we want to do is really stair step up in our life.
Mm.
Like, okay, what would I like to create today?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a creative. I actually love color. Well, can you get some 5x7 cards and paint something? Can you get a canvas? You don't know.
Mm.
Whatever it is that you'd like to step into and what you'd like to have learned and what you'd like to create, we can take little steps that build momentum,
Mm.
and then you can shift.
Yeah.
I also have people with, with their limiting beliefs. It's just an old tissue box, and it's called an inactive box. It comes from Esther Hicks' work, and it's like, just write down. I don't know what I can't. I don't know if I can fill this group in the box. I'm not enough in the box. I'll never make enough money in the box. We want to deactivate any beliefs that are we're holding on and rehearsing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and create new beliefs. Just flip that belief
Yeah.
into, wait, who am I today?
Yeah. Ah, and I love your 4 questions. Oh my goodness. Those are powerful questions. Anytime, whether there's a pandemic or
Anytime.
not.
And that literally it can be, oh, I didn't get the client, I didn't get the job, I didn't get, my child didn't get into this school. Well, how is it a blessing that your child didn't get into that school? Well, really, they usually lean in like, I really didn't want them to go to that school. Okay. That's how this is an answer to an unspoken or unconscious
Yes.
prayer.
I
Okay.
really like that question
Yeah.
because so many people said to me things like, um, I'm now able to spend more time with my children.
Yes.
Even though it was hard
Yeah.
and they had to teach, but they were able to get more connected with their
Yeah.
kids. And this was men in particular
Yes.
who who,
There
who
was a neighbor.
realized,
Yeah. I had neighbor kids who he was, I think, probably 5 at the time. And I could see the joy in his eyes that his father had to stay home with him.
right?
So I knew how this was an answer to his prayer. Like,
Yeah,
yes, I got you right where I
I
want
want
you.
you. Well, I was also thinking about your comment of the professor who was afraid to do it virtually
Yeah.
because I used to teach at Columbia University
Mhm.
in the only virtual program that they had. And so to me, it was like, big deal. We just continue on.
Right.
And we were, of course, then talking to people who now had to do it virtually.
And
It's
this
different.
person is a brilliant professor,
Yeah.
but her gift, experiential learning.
Oh my goodness.
So she loved creating amazing programs for even outside and in the world. And so we had to shift how, and she pivoted. And it really goes to that curiosity of, how can I?
Yeah.
How can I create what I want to create?
Yeah. Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, my audience is made up of people who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Some of them are just starting out. Some of them are at a pivot point in their career. Think about them in terms of what advice would you give them to help themselves really embrace curiosity, even when it means something unexpected can happen? You've been talking around this, so let's get real practical.
I've learned to love the unexpected, right? And because I have to use those 4 questions just like everybody else. Like, how is this here to bless me? And so, I love this idea of pivoting and this. How can they be curious? From some of the hypnotherapy work as a clinical hypnotherapist, I also work with people on like, what did you want to be between the age of 7 and 14?
Oh,
And
Camille, I have to tell you this.
yes,
This
please.
question, this is amazing. When I was 13,
Uh-huh.
I decided that I was going to have a collection. You know, collection of dolls or collection of baseball cards. I collected seeds. I grew up on a farm.
Mhm.
Seeds were everywhere. So I had a collection of seeds. And it got to where I could look at a seed and I could see the whole plant because I recognized them, right? And I was telling this to a friend of mine, and he said, "You see seeds today in the people that you mentor."
Yes.
I had to share that with you.
I love that because that's exactly what, I'm looking at your book cover behind you, and it's like you are unlocking the seeds for people
Yeah.
and the ability, and you collect people.
I do.
Right? And so that have seeds within them that have blossomed maybe just more than someone else. But what you're doing is calling out the seed from within someone else.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly the same thing. Is really, I love for people to just journal a little bit, just each day take 10 minutes and
Mm.
just think, what did I love to do as a kid? I loved helping people with problems, to the point that in, dating myself in the early 70s, we even had two lines in our house because my mother needed it. She was a principal of a high school, and she needed to get to us when, but I was either on the phone or like, so she just put in who had a second house? Like Sue had a second phone,
That's right.
in the 70s, right? And so the ability for people to really do that inner research, be curious about what you love to do. Some people will say, well, I love to watch Netflix and I love to, I'm like, well, do you really love it, or are you numbing out?
Yeah.
I have nephews who are in film. They are studying it. They are studying movies when they're doing that,
Yeah.
and they're using it in their craft. So it's ability to move to craft stage with it.
Mhm.
So the first question is, what would I love to do? What did I love to do between the ages of 7 and 14? Who did I want to be? Are there any kernels, any seeds of that in what I'm doing today? Especially if they do not love their job. I will
Yes.
tell you, one of my favorite jobs in corporate was when I had somebody I had to put on performance improvement because they weren't
Yes.
thriving.
Yes.
I'm like, I get to coach this person. Like, I wanted to know, who are you? Like, why aren't you thriving? And
Yeah.
they're like, I don't really like doing this work. I'm like, well, how did you get here? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, and it could have been a parent, a school, they'll use their Myers-Briggs that they should have been doing this kind of work. And I'm like, well, what do you love? Well, I'm free flowing. I'm like, I'd like to create, or I'm a project management and manager and I'm stuck over here. And I'm like, well, let's try you out.
Try you out.
The most important thing that people can do is test everything.
Yeah.
Be willing to test, be willing to try out some new things. Take a class. One of the year when I was coming out of my financial demise after the military, I gave myself a year. I don't know if you again, dating myself. The Learning Annex was here, and it was like monthly classes, and I promised myself I would take a class every month on something new,
Yeah.
just to see what was mine.
Mhm. Mm. Fabulous. Fabulous. you know, I can tell. I can tell why we have connected so well because I have been known to say, if I am not learning, I am not living.
I mean, and not everybody's like us. Let's just
That's
be
right.
clear.
No, that's absolutely right.
And I do recommend people do the VIA character. Or I also work with
Yeah.
people on finding out their whys and their why operating system. But when I looked at my husband's and my score, I used to torture my husband, like, let's go to this workshop. Let's go to this workshop. And he's like, no, no. And when I looked at our scores, love of learning is number 2 for me. Love of learning for him is number 23
Oh
or
my goodness.
24. I I just stopped. I just stopped bothering him with, workshops. I just said, and now he does it, but his curiosity is higher than mine. So
Ah,
he'll do it from a curiosity
velocity
place.
perspective. Oh, I
So
love it.
so
Love
that's the
it.
way we can use our superpowers in a
Mm,
very fluid way.
great. Kamin, I am just so thrilled to have you on, and I want to thank you again for being a part of this. I loved your earliest comment. In the present moment, we can create anything.
Yes.
Ah, I wonder if you have any final comments you want to make for our audience.
I think for this really is, and I know I have hope as and optimism are high for me. But I think the thing I want to leave people with is really this is the most creative time in history. We need innovators. We need people who can create new ways of handling excess water. We need new ways of how do you design a building where people want to go in and they feel safe. There are new ideas for education. There isn't any area that doesn't need a new innovation, and there are people who have that knowledge. And so I just want to encourage people to realize that you are more powerful, that you are infinitely valuable,
Mm,
infinitely powerful, and infinitely safe. And if you can own that, then what would you create? If that is the thing that you wake up to every day, what would you create? What would you love to see? Listen to your words. Do you like to make things better? Do you like to make sense of things? Is your mastery like mine high? And how are you using it? And what is the goal? What's the next level goal that you have in your life? And from one of my books is Conscious Luck Workbook. When we talk about it, is what is meaningful? Whatever you're trying to create meaningful? Does it light you up, and does it benefit others? And the more we come from that, the better, the more expansive we can be.
mm, I love it. Wow. Thank you again. In addition to that early quote that I talked about, in the present moment, we can create anything. I loved your 4 questions. I'm going to see if I can remember them. Uh, what is your blessing? What is happening that is an answer to an unspoken prayer or thought? What are you trying to learn? And what would you like to create?
What would you like to create? And then test everything.
And then test it.
Having a testing, and I wasn't, wasn't that good of a student. I was a great student, but I was, put in kind of a box over here, and didn't live my potential. And so now I get to test. I work with, people, and like, test it, try it.
Yeah.
But most people are so afraid of rejection, of the fear of their lives, of what is going to happen. And so test it all.
Good. All right. Thank you, Kamin. One more
Thank
time.
you. Thank you for having me. It's just been a joy to be here.
Thank you. Wow. That was lovely. Before Kamin joined me, you'll recall that I mentioned a question I had asked Dr. Ed. I want you to listen to his answer. And how does knowing, remember the question was, how does knowing who you are change the way you manage others? And I think you're going to hear some parallels to what Kamin has been saying. Let me get him on screen. There he is. And to understand better who you were. How did that alter the way in which you managed or led the people that you were working with there at NASA?
I've been told by students and others that you ask really interesting questions. You say things I wouldn't expect, like you're really interested or listening, or you're making me think. And I think that goes back to a lot of the best times in my life when I was starting to maybe emerge, if you will, was in these early sessions at NASA, where I had the ability and the freedom to try on things that scared me, and it was okay, but also taking time to think about who I am, what are my values, what do I like, what don't I like, who are the
Mhm.
people I want to be with, what are the dreams that I have? And that helped me. And so I try to do things that help other people be comfortable finding their own right path, I guess, or right answer. So it's a strong question you have, because I realize that probably led to the direction I went for the last 30 years of my life.
Wow. I, I always enjoy hearing how Ed responds to things. It's always different than what I anticipate, but always consistent. You know, the first characteristic of highly resilient people that I interviewed was that they understood who they were. And Kamin's comments about the importance of keep asking those questions. And even though the decision may be hard, you still have the power to do amazing, amazing things. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unlocked. If you did, make a comment in social media about what you learned and might do differently as a result. And if you're on YouTube, click the like button and share it. And maybe even subscribe. I'm Madeline Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilience.